Hi, my name is Sage Pacheco. I'm the Marketing and Customer Experience Specialist here at Wisecon Engineering. Thank you for joining us for our peak hour and ADR webinar here today. Today, we're going to be talking about those peak hour changes, those changes in the time of use, as well as ADR programs and those incentives that come along with those, as well as the peak hour alert tool we have on Drop Control. Today, we're going to be joined by our co-host, Justin Witte. He is a Ag and Food Processing Supervisor at PG&E, and he's going to walk us through those time of use peak hour changes. So getting started here, I'm going to talk a little bit about Wisecon and what we do, as well as that peak hour tool on Drop Control. And then Justin's going to go ahead and walk us through the time of use changes, and then we're going to go into a full Q&A. So you have your Q&A box here. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, go ahead and just shoot them there. And then at the end, we will go ahead and go through those questions and answer those for you. So starting here, going a little more about Wisecon, if you don't already know, we were founded in 2006 and I've been in California since 2015. We're actually a Chilean-based company, and we have over 300,000 acres that we're currently serving, as well as over 10,000 nodes deployed. In California alone, we have 15 distributors and dealers, but 20 throughout the whole United States. So distributors obviously in California, but also in Pacific Northwest, as well as the Southeast region of the United States. We have over 2,000 users in 5 different countries, that being Argentina, Chile, US, Peru, and Mexico. We have a fully staffed support team and warehouse here in Fresno, California, in the US, as well as in Chile. We have over 5 API integrators, meaning that we have an open API so that we can connect with other companies to share data and better analyze and support the growers if they're working with multiple different companies, including Wisecon. So going into what we focus on here at Wisecon, which is going to be Drop Control. You can see all of our systems we have deployed out in the United States here. So what is Drop Control? Drop Control is a reliable irrigation monitoring and control system. So we pride ourselves on being the forefront of automation industry. Automated irrigation is what we specialize in. It's our bread and butter. It's what we do the most of. However, we also have our hand in many other telemetry aspects as well. The first feature is going to be that control system, and that would be the pump start stop, as well as wireless valve control, opening and closing of valves, sequential valve operation, per variety irrigation, etc. We also focus on weather analysis through the use of weather stations. So we distribute Davis weather stations, but we can read directly through that hardware, or we can utilize our API to tie into an existing weather station that you have out there on the field. We do a lot of soil moisture monitoring. So we sell Centec probes, but we are sensor agnostic, meaning that any open protocol sensor you have out there in the field, we can simply tie into and retrieve data from. And of course, we offer full remote capabilities. So all from your iPhone, desktop, iPad, Android, whatever you have, you can turn on and off your pump, schedule irrigations, monitor soil moisture, look at weather reports and the forecast, all from your device. So if you're at home, in the office, out in the field, you can do everything from your mobile device or computer. We are comprised of hardware and software. So going into our hardware, we have our 3 nodes. In the center there, you can see our flagship X1 node. This has full monitoring capabilities and control capabilities, all within the same node. On the right-hand side, you have our M1, which is our soil monitoring node. So monitoring soil moisture probes, weather sensors, any other sensors you have out there in the field, we can simply tie into our M1. It can operate as its own radio unit. So Drop Control uses a 900 megahertz frequency that all the nodes talk to each other on, and that information then goes out to the cloud. So essentially this M1 can either be a cellular gateway in itself, or it can be a radio module for the gateway, which would either be the X1 or the C1 you see here. And finally, the C1, the node there on the left, this is the pump filter station control node. So the C1 can actually start and stop 5 different pumps and 10 different valves, as well as fertilizer pump and acid injections. Moving into our software. So as mentioned before, you can control and manage anything from a mobile device or computer. So if you're scheduling irrigation, you'd want to do this on your device. It all goes through Amazon Web Services, then to our Wisecon server. Then it all goes to the gateway. Then the commands get sent to the radio nodes out in the field. This can also be done through a third-party platform. So you can schedule through another company's platform if you're working with another company, and then our hardware will then execute that for you. As mentioned before, we can also share data with other companies as well. This is a quick look of what drop control software would look like on a desktop, and as well what it look like on the mobile app. So we do have a mobile app, as mentioned, for Apple and Android. Everything you can do on the desktop, you can also do on the mobile app. So if you're out and about, not in the office, not at home, you can do everything on your phone. When you create a drop control account or when we create one for you, we will then map out your ranch via Google Earth using a KMZ file. So basically what this means is that we would get the exact coordinates of your ranch, put those onto the KMZ file, and then go ahead and locate the nodes in every sensor you have located on your ranch here, which is going to be all those white dots that you can see on the map. So this is what you would see when you would log on to your drop control account and look at an overview of your ranch. As mentioned before, we specialize in automated irrigation, specifically in scheduling. So there are three ways to control how long or how much your irrigation will run. That is duration, so hours or minutes, date and time, and volume in inches. Probably the most common being duration, and we're going to see that live on drop control and just here in a moment. But once you select your customized irrigation tactic, drop control will then calculate the volume of water that will be put on. We can also schedule acid and fertilizer injections if you have that available. Creating templates and programs. So this is helpful if you want to run the same set for, let's say, a week, 2 weeks, a month. You would simply create a template on drop control, defining how much you want to irrigate for each zone, which zones you want to go first. You can switch up the order. You can irrigate the same zone multiple times a day. You would then create the template and then go ahead into programs and create that program using that template you've just made and set the amount of time you want that program to run for. The daily view of irrigations, this is helpful on the scheduling tab. You can view every single irrigation that's scheduled throughout the entire week for each block. This is showing us our 24-hour period, so one day for each block. So you're going to see your irrigation program scheduled in that dark blue box up at the top. And then those boxes right below it is going to show what actually happened. So the executed irrigation. In this case, it's green because there was fertilizer involved. Usually it'd be like a light blue color. Weekly view, this is helpful to see your whole schedule for the week. So every single zone you have and every single irrigation that is planned for the entire week, as well as what was executed. So this is helpful if you want to keep everyone in your operation in the same loop to know what's going on throughout the whole week. We also have the ability to view operational feedback. So basically this is showing you what actually happened versus just seeing the scheduled execution. You can see what actually happened. It's going to go ahead and read the pressure, the flow. It can give you a volume difference. So this is helpful when knowing if you are having pressure or flow issues as well. It's going to show you everything that actually happened throughout that irrigation. Manual operation. So if you still choose to manually irrigate maybe some blocks or some zones, you're able to see that on this map here as well in this gold color. So it's not only going to show you what was scheduled through drop control, but also what manually actually happened. Irrigation scheduling on the app. So this is going to give us a quick look of what you would be able to do on your mobile app when scheduling irrigation. Click your zone, your type, duration, click your start date, your duration, what pump you want to operate, and go ahead and just schedule. Monitoring on your app is also very simple. So we're looking at weather analysis right now. You can also look at soil moisture analysis on the app. You can look at whether you have a local weather station, a Davis weather station that we install, or a CIMA station. You can look at both of those, as well as your soil moisture, simply all there on the app. Flow meter readings, so these are helpful on drop control as well. So this is giving us a look into our weekly accumulated volume and those black bars, as well as flow and accumulated volume. Pressure throughout the system. So this is showing us a custom chart on drop control, and it's showing us 3 different pumps pressure. So if we were on drop control, we can run our mouse over the black, purple, and blue lines and be able to see that exact PSI. Soil moisture, so like I said, that we use this a lot on drop control as well. So soil moisture is a very useful tool. Up at the top, we can see that we're reading soil moisture from 6 inches, 10 inches, and 14 inches. We can just match those with the color up at the top. In the middle, we call this our fairway. So this graph is showing us basically our added soil moisture, kind of just showing us our trends. So we can then match up the trends and make better decisions on how much we need to water. So this black line is showing us our added soil moisture. and it's going to show us keeping it mainly in the fairway. So you can go ahead and adjust those minimum and maximum moisture volumes on drop control yourself. But right now we can see that we're going a little bit too wet. But like I said, you can always customize those maximum and minimum volumes. And then below, we can see our measurements of irrigation and rainfall events as well as ET. So you can match up an irrigation event or a rainfall with those trends as well and see how much moisture was absorbed in the soil during those events. Going into weather, so it's always going to show us rainfall and ET, as well as here we're looking at the top temperature and relative humidity in orange and blue. And frost protection. So frost protection is also a tool on drop control. You can set your minimum temperatures that you want to analyze. And in this orange line, you can see we're reading those temperature trends. So if you're in an area where you experience a lot of frost events, you can use this as a tool to set your parameters to maybe 35 or 32 degrees. And whenever it reaches below those temperatures, drop control can then alert you to start an irrigation event to protect against frost. So this is very useful in areas where growers receive a lot of frost events. We also have the ability to set chill hours. So this is showing us accumulated chill hours from November to May. And of course, our ROI is something we love to focus on, which is yield increase in the field. This is very significant, especially in this case. This testimonial was featuring Tom Rogers. This is on our YouTube channel as well as other socials, but it's one of our many bigger success stories. So Tom lost a well in the beginning of summer, but still saw a 5 to 10% increase in yield as well as 30% water savings just for using drop control. So this was a very big success for us as well as for Tom. And going to peak hour. So like I said, Justin's going to talk a little bit more about peak hour on the PG&E side, but as far as drop control, we have a peak hour mode set on your drop control software. So I'm going to go into drop control in just here in a minute, but this is just a snapshot of what it would look like. So this peachy orange color showing us looks like from 12 to 5 would be our peak hours in this area. And it's showing us so that we can see when our irrigation is going to run into those peak hours. And ADR program. So touching a bit on ADR, so automated demand response. So this is for offsetting the cost of remote monitoring and control installation. So what we would do for you. The incentives for this would be pump monitoring and control solution that participates in a demand response automatically, as well as soil moisture monitoring of fields irrigated by those participating pumps on the program. Eligibility for this program is pretty simple. At least one irrigation pump tied in with a PG&E meter that they're able to read, and at least 1 year of billing history with PG&E as well. An ideal candidate for these ADR programs, in case it's you, you would have several irrigation pumps that use this PG&E electricity. You'd be pumping on peak for the last 1 to 2 years. Ability to shift pumps for at least 3 years, and interested in subsidizing pump control, flow meters, pressure pump sensors, and soil moisture monitoring equipment. So if this is you, you might as well go ahead and apply for these ADR programs, but this is what PG&E is mainly looking for those. All right, the process of this program would be first application, then would be installation of the system, and then of course payment. So that first incentive payment would be 60% of the incentive. Second would be after 12 months, so 1 full year of using the program, and it would be the remainder, so 40% of the incentive. All right, so that's a bit about ADR programs, a touch on drop control, and a touch on Wisecon as well. So I'm going to go ahead and go into drop control just to demonstrate for you guys that peak hour feature we have available. So right now I am on one of our demo accounts out at Fresno State. We have a system and they're olive and almond orchards. So if this were your account, you would simply go over to this irrigation scheduling tab, which has the clock next to irrigation on the left-hand side. And as I can see here, I can already see my preview of the irrigation schedule with my peak hours. So if I had irrigation scheduled right now, I'd be able to see them located right here. But as I can see my peak hours right now. They're from 12 to 5. I'm going to go ahead and do zone irrigation for an example. Go ahead and click your pump system. I'm just going to use the almond orchard and then my zone. All right, so I can always see my peak hours, which is obviously very helpful. I'm going to go ahead and use duration as my form of irrigation. So like I said, there were 3 different types. I'm going to go ahead and use duration, and I'm going to show you guys what it would look like to irrigate during a peak event. So I'm going to schedule this out for tomorrow, the 24th. I'm going to go ahead and set this for about 1 o'clock. Run it for about 3 hours. And it's, like I said, I'm definitely going to kick out a volume. Like I said, we can include fertilizer and acid injections. And then I'm going to go ahead and schedule. I'm automatically going to get an alert that says the irrigation is imposing with a peak hour. Do you want to continue? So this is when drop control will let you know, hey, you're entering peak hours. Do you want to cancel this irrigation and try to irrigate at another time, maybe after peak, or do you want to ignore and go ahead and just irrigate? So that would be an example of our peak hour system we have. If peak hours ever change in your area, like right now what we're experiencing, what Justin's going to talk about, you can go ahead and just let us know at Wisecon, and we can go into drop control and change those peak hours for your specific area, and they'll be located here. All right, so that is a bit about drop control. And like I said, that peak hour feature we have located in drop control. Now we're going to hear a bit from Justin to walk us through those new peak hour changes and a little bit more about what those have to offer.
Hello, everybody. My name is Justin Witte. I am with PG&E. So welcome, everybody. I'm glad you're able to call in today. I've had the opportunity to partner with Wisecon on a few of these, and always appreciate the partnership. Anytime at PG&E we can help our customers to learn about different technology efforts, as well as the time of use period changes that I'm going to be talking about today. We're definitely all about that. I have the privilege of being a supervisor with PG&E. I've worked for PG&E for just about 10 years, and I supervise a team of agriculture account managers. Our team is often out in the field working with different growers and learning about their operation and really helping to maximize their operation. So I'm going to go ahead and go through some slides on our time of use changes. Our team, or maybe you've seen it in your excuse me, I can't talk today. Maybe you've seen it in a Farm Bureau newsletter, or even as Sage talked about earlier today. We have some changes that are happening within time of use on agriculture. And if you weren't aware, agriculture rates with PG&E specific to electric have their own rate plans. So that means that these rate plans are different than your house, or different than perhaps like a bank or a commercial building. They're very specific to ag and how they're used and their pricing. So if we look at this graph that's here today, this matrix, all the way over on the left-hand side, we have what we call our legacy rates and what have been our current plan for a long time. And I think a lot of people got really used to that, and they've built their systems around that. They've been able to optimize watering around that. But it's important to understand what that was and then what's available now. So if I recap what the legacy plan was, it was something that was 6 months out of the year that we had the summer months. We started that in May and we ended it in October. And within those months, we had 5 out of the 7 days a week where we had a peak period in there. And the peak period was 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. And that was Monday through Friday. So what that really means is, just to give you a good example, is on Monday at 1 o'clock would be a very expensive time for me to pump. That's my peak time. However, in the legacy rates, Saturday at 1 o'clock was off peak because we didn't have a peak time on the weekends. So now let's fast forward a little bit and let's talk about some of the major changes here. We're going to move all the way over to the right-hand side of this matrix where it says agriculture new plan. So the first thing is our peak time rates are no longer 6 months, they're now 4 months. So instead of starting in May, we start in June, and instead of ending in October, we end in September. Now, the days of the week for the peak time, this is a big change. This one, instead of 5 days a week, it's 7 days a week. So that Monday example versus the Saturday example that I gave just a moment ago, you would pay the same amount on Monday at 1 o'clock, at 5 o'clock, as you would on a Saturday at 5 o'clock, because the new peak time rates are 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. So 7 days a week, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. That equals 21 hours of peak time for every week that you're pumping in June, July, August, and September. So I want to kind of give you some highlights on besides the time of use change, we're changing the rates. So we'll have some different rate codes. You'll see the changing on our bill. And I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you that this is already happening. We've been out having conversations like this, presentations, etc. And March was our transition time. So if you haven't received any of your bills for the month of March, or you haven't started pumping for the season, you're going to see these changes on an upcoming bill. I'm going to give you some resources at the end to reach out to me if you have any questions, if we can do anything to help you. But to move through this presentation here, what we're going to do is we're going to take these rates and put them into three different classes. We're going to have a small class of rates, which is going to be smaller horsepower. Run times maybe will vary. We'll have a medium rate where the horsepower will be a little bit larger. Maybe your run hours every year aren't as big as one of the pumps that you have on a almond orchard, let's say. And then we'll have our large ag. So our traditional large ag, where you have large horsepower as well as long run hours every year, that will fall into what they call AGC. The idea between making all these changes was to make things very more clear and more simple. Now, I know when we talk through these things, it's anything but clear and simple, but our past rates had a lot more different options and caveats to that. And we hope to make this more clear and simple. And we're here to help you. So if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Like I said, I'm going to be sharing my contact information at the end. One of the major things that I really want to highlight is no connected load charge. And what that means is that everything is a demand or measured demand or created demand on all these rates. And if you don't know what that means, I'm going to show you an example in just a moment. But in the past, you may have seen charges on your bill that you might have called a standby charge, where whether you used that particular pump, whether it was 0, 1 hour, or for a few hours in that month, you were charged a significant amount. So I'll tell you what that looks like in just a moment here. And then the other thing is, I think we had some issues with partial peak. So partial peak in the past was something where it wasn't the high price of peak, it wasn't the low price of off peak. It was in the middle. It was partial peak. So we've eliminated the partial peak just to really streamline things. So it's either off peak or on peak. And then we also have some rate limiters on there. That's a little bit it's a little bit in the weeds as far as how that all works. I'm happy to do a one-on-one with anybody if they have any questions on that. But I do want to show you some things that I think are pretty neat that we've also been doing. So as Sage mentioned with Wisecon, you really have a lot of ways to look at your irrigation scheduling, to overlay those costs in there and really optimize or maximize how to do all of your irrigating work at the lowest cost. And one of the options that you have with PG&E in our rates is what we call a split week option. So a split week option is going to allow you 2 days out of the week where you're going to be able to avoid that peak time. And right now we have 3 scenarios that you can choose from. You can do that on a Wednesday or a Thursday, a Saturday or a Sunday, or a Monday or a Friday. So if you run a longer irrigation set and you want to have something where you can run for 2 days, 48 hours, 30 hours, whatever it might be, and you want to avoid peak time, we have a solution for you. So I'm really happy that we have that. And I think that there's also some examples like on the right-hand side where if you have an even longer set that you're running, some of these Wednesday, Thursday, or Saturday, Sundays can definitely give you a longer set up to 69 hours on there. The example there shows that if you stopped your pumping, it would be Friday, right when the peak time ends, and you would have back through Monday to do that. So you'd have quite a bit of hours, quite a bit of time to get that work done at the lowest possible price. We do call these AGF is the option, and then we have that AGF would be the rate, and then you have the option of the Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday, Friday. Now, I know it's really tough to realize, well, how do I know that this is available to me? So in just a moment, I'm going to kind of go over some options you have that we can offer you to analyze these, and just encouraging you to work with firms like Wisecon that are able to really help you maximize that. So this is a really good calculation that we had. We've been using this calculation through all of these presentations, and it's a 10 horsepower calculation, a sample, if you will. And I just want to really show it to you, and I do think it scales up for you. A lot of people might say, well, I don't have a 10 horsepower pump. Well, that's fine. But if you do, I think this is a really good opportunity for you to see what these two look like. So if we start over on the left-hand side, what we see is we have this 10 horsepower pump, and we got what we call a summer bill. This would have been the month of July. And we see that the usage was 225 kilowatt hours. And then this outlays customer charge, connected load charge, etc. All of these charges that you would see on your bill, and for those 225 kilowatt hours over 30 days with the 10 horsepower, the bill from PG&E would have been $165.66. Now, if we take that, and that's called the legacy rate, that would be under AG 4A, and we say, okay, well, what does that mean if I fast forward to this summer of 2021, and I do have the same thing, and I'm now on AG 1A? So we have the same scenario as far as usage and days, but where we start to see a difference here is down on the usage and the connected load charge. So let's say that you only you had a VFD, or you had a way to control your motor, and you were only using 7.5 kW. Get an opportunity to save, because remember, we're only charging you a demand charge based on the created demand, not what with a fixed demand. So this bill, if we compare them, there's about a $40 difference. I know that's not much, but it is something. And it does, like I said, it does scale up. Now, I'm not saying that everybody's going to save money on these. There's definitely some times when you won't. And we want to make sure that we can help you with analyzing that rate. We want to make sure we can help you with things like energy efficiency. And we want to just really be a trusted advisor for you. Solar is the next thing I really want to talk about as it relates to rates. We get a lot of questions around these rates and solar. What does that mean for me? What are the impacts? And I think we get that because our customers, especially ag, have made significant investments in solar. They really decided that, hey, I want to take the generation part of my electric use, and I want to make sure that I own that, and then I have some control over that. So the good news for solar is, if you had the interconnection agreement submitted or the application by January 31st of 2017, you have a 10-year grandfathering in that. So what that means is that those legacy rates will still qualify for you for the next 10 years. As you can see from the verbiage there, you would then get moved into the correct rate after that, or the next best rate. I do want to just give you a little tip on the solar, though. The new rates, some of them may be more solar friendly than you would think. So I encourage you to look at those rates and to partner with a PG&E rep who can go over that with you. And if you are able to make a change because there's a benefit, so let's say that you decide AGB really makes sense and is a much less out of pocket for you and your solar system, you could change one of your pumps that's currently on solar to AGB. However, you're unable to change it back. If you decide, hey, I made the wrong choice, I want to go back to my previous rate, unfortunately, you're not able to do that. You would be then in the new rate system. But I do think it's worth looking into. And then wanted to just give you my information before I quickly talk about the ADR, as well as some rebate offerings that we have. So I strongly encourage you to work with a PG&E account manager. We have PG&E account managers that are positioned throughout California, whether you are in Kern County or whether you're up north, Sacramento Valley, Central Coast, wherever you're at, we have local reps that are able to partner up with you. I hope that you're working with one on a regular basis. If you're not, please email me. I'll do my best to get you set up with somebody that can answer any questions you have, can help you with the rate analysis or whatever you need. If you're very tech savvy, I encourage you to visit pge.com. We have a number of self-service tools on there that can help you with these rate analysis, where you can go and you can take a pump and say, okay, here's my options, and it'll outlay the cost, give you a comparison based on the last 12 months. If I would have moved into this rate today, how much would have saved? And then, a really good one to good resource to plug into your phone is this Ag Customer Service Center, and that's 877-311-3276. If you've ever called into it before, you'll know that this group is specially trained to handle agriculture accounts. They really strive to have a really good level of customer service for our customers. And one of the things that we've changed with our ag line, as well as some of our other lines of business when you call into us, is we now offer callback options. So the days of having to wait online or on hold for 45 minutes or an hour, that's all over. You, just like many other providers, you can now, if the hold time is greater than 5 minutes, you can go on there and say, hey, I'd like to get a call back. It'll call you back, and then you're able to talk to a live rep. So I think that's a really good value for folks as they are able to go about their business and not have to wait online. for that. So I wanted to briefly touch on the ADR, which is the automated demand response, as Sage pointed out earlier. So some of the benefits to that are just a really different way of thinking and doing business. So the principle of ADR, demand response, is that there's a monetary value that's provided when you're able to save money or curtail energy on a certain day. So obviously, to do that, some hardware is needed to really maximize that. And what the ADR program does is it allows you to help to buy down those costs, if not cover those costs for you. And then, as Sage showed you earlier, you've got some steps on how you engage, how you get paid for this, and what the model looks like on there. We have a really great website that is pge-adr.com. This one has a lot of different resources on there. I wanted to really point out one that really impressed me. This was a Northern California grower. They did remote monitoring and control for some irrigation pumps. I think it was about 24 different irrigation pumps that they did. And they were able to receive an incentive of about $91,000 to do that, as well as they were able to, over the course of the program, shave about 544 kW off of their bill. So definitely worthwhile to do. And when you talk about the remote monitoring and the control of the irrigation pumps, that incentive of 91,000, that's related to the money we gave them for the hardware and installation costs. Not what I don't have record of, and I'm sure there's a great savings. And Sage probably knows more about this than I do. Is the additional labor savings you have, as well as the troubleshooting that automation can do for you. I also wanted to let you know that, a lot of times when you're working with Wisecon in looking at what's available to you and how do you really automate, how do you evaluate this, some of the other controls that people will often look at is like a variable frequency drive. Now, we do offer rebates for variable frequency drives. If you've installed one and you're interested in getting that rebate or talking more, learning more about future plans, please email me. My email's on the page there, and I can get you all the information you need and or help you with with getting that rebate process. So that is the information that I have for everybody today. Just give you a quick little recap here. PGE.com has a lot of good resources for you for ag. The ADR program is definitely a great resource for working with a company like Wisecon. Encourage you to partner up with them and get more for information. And then all of our resources are still available, whether it's a VFD or the rate information at PG.com. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Sage. I really appreciate the time that you've given us today and the ability to share.
Awesome. Thank you, Justin. Really appreciate it. That was some really great information. We're going to go ahead and go into a Q&A. So if you had any questions that you thought of throughout the entire webinar, you can go ahead and throw them in that Q&A chat box, and we can speak aloud. All right. So first question here, Justin, how can I start an ADR application process?
So good question on the ADR application process. So we try to make it really simple. There's the couple different ways you can do it. So if you are working with an installer right now that handles ADR installations, you can definitely engage with them. If you haven't done anything like that and you're looking to get information, certainly Wisecon can be a really good place to start with an application, as well as we have our service where we can get you some information and help you along. Two different options for that. The first one is PGE ADR at energy-solution.com or 855-866-2502. And maybe I can add those to my presentation, Sage, and get those to you. But we want to make the application process easy. If you do run into any roadblocks, please email me and I'll be happy to help you out.
All right. Next question is, when do the new peak hours start?
Yeah, great question there. So we've already transitioned over to the new rates. However, the summer peak hours will not start until May. So right now we are currently on the new ag rates, but your current peak hours for the most expensive summer prices will not start until May.
All right. We have another one. To avoid a demand charge, what time should the pumps be shut down before the 5 p.m. peak charge? 4:45, 4:50?
Yeah, I'm glad this question was asked. So I just want to make a clarification here. So if you really look at your bill, you can really divide it up into two sections. The first one's demand charges, and the second one is the energy charges or the kilowatt hours. So with what I presented today, your demand charges are going to be, that's the amount of energy you use. So if you have a 100 horsepower pump, we're going to charge you that amount of that pump coming on our system as a demand charge. So there's no avoiding the demand charge. The demand charge is always there. Where you have the ability to avoid is the energy charge or the kilowatt hour charge. And if you wanted to avoid the most expensive peak times, you would want to avoid 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week.
All right. Does drop control have any features to stay off peak hours? Yes. So I don't know if you saw in the segment of the presentation, probably it was towards the beginning, but on drop control, when you go to schedule an irrigation, if you're going into those peak hours that you have set on your account for your specific area, it'll let you know when you're entering into peak hours. So you're able to either not schedule an irrigation or maybe adjust the times. So yes, we have that feature available on drop control as well. And then in your 24-hour GAF chart on drop control, you can see your peak hours are always illuminated, whatever hours they're aligned to. And if they ever change in your area, like right now, we have the changing time of use hours, we can always contact us and we can change those on your account for you. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. We really appreciate your time. Thank you, Justin, for co-hosting with me and giving some great information. Like I said, everyone, if you ever have questions, go ahead and contact me, contact Justin directly, and we'd be happy to help you.